Okay, today I wanted to talk about theories of salvation. And I don't, this isn't going to be really a very in depth overview to begin with, to start out with. Um, just a kind of a brief review of how different people view salvation. And this is just cut down to the bare bones, okay? This is nothing in depth, okay? And, this is kind of like the idea, if I'm looking for a religion, okay, the thing that I would be most concerned about is the idea of salvation. If I join this church, what is my guarantee of salvation without really defining what salvation is? And like I say, this is just a brief overview. I'm not going to try to get too much into depth at the moment because, I will get into a greater depth when I talk about what I believe is salvation. But let's say that I am looking for a church and I want to know what their concept of salvation is. What are my chances of being saved? Okay, so first of all, we're going to start with the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church divides the world into two groups. There are Catholics and there are non-Catholics. Okay, according to the Catholic Church, if you are not Catholic, you have no hope for salvation. You have to be a Catholic in order to be saved. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It doesn't matter how good you are in the world. If you're not Catholic, you die, you go to hell. All right? Now, among Catholics, there are two groups of Catholics. There's good Catholics and there are bad Catholics. Now, in order to be a good Catholic and in order to go directly to heaven when you die, you have to keep the rules of the Catholic Church. That's it. Now, some of the requirements for being a good Catholic is that there are certain sacraments that you have to participate in order to be in the Catholic heaven. Okay, and I don't know. I'm not sure if I remember what they all are, but we'll see how good I come up with. There's baptism. There is confession, confirmation, and there is marriage, and there's last rites, and I think there's two more. I think there's 7, but I don't really know what they are. But and you have to be obedient to the Pope. Okay, you can't deviate from whatever it is that the Pope believes. Whatever the Pope believes, that is what you believe. Whatever the Pope says, that's what you do, what you follow. Whatever the Pope says you can do, and what he says you can't do, you can't do. Okay? So, salvation, being a good Catholic, is following the Pope, getting your sacraments, and believing the doctrine of the Catholic Church. All right? That's to be a good Catholic. If you're a bad Catholic, now what have you got to do? Now what happens? You're a bad Catholic, you've been baptized, you receive some of the sacraments, but not all the sacraments, whatever. But because you are a Catholic, you were baptized Catholic, when you die, you go to a place called purgatory, or you could also say purgatory, because it's a place of purging. It's a place where you are purged from whatever it is that made you a bad Catholic. Okay? And in order to get out of purgatory or purgatory, whatever it is, there's time. Eventually you'll get out. Or you can speed up the process by having people get the priest to pray for you, and which is going to cost you money. And if they pay enough money and get enough prayers, then they can pray you out of purgatory and into heaven. Okay, and but like I say, if you're not a Catholic, you die, you go directly to hell. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Okay. Now, that's the Catholic concept. Well, how does that fit into my belief about God? Well, it doesn't seem to me that a God that would base salvation on membership in a church, from what I've read in the Bible, is not exactly correct. That God would be so petty as to say, well, this one's going to be saved, this one's not going to be saved, just because of their membership in a church. That just doesn't seem logical to me. And owing to the fact that there are a lot of people in the world that live better lives than a lot of Catholics in the world. Why should I don't believe that God is going to damn a just person to hell just because he doesn't belong to a church, a specific church. So I'm not too interested in that kind of religion. Okay. So then you have a broad range of Protestant churches. And among the Protestant churches, you have on one extreme churches that are a lot like Catholic. And on the other extreme, you have churches that are very liberal. Okay. And the churches that have the same attitude of salvation that the Catholics do, that you have to be a member of that church in order to be saved, well, once again, the same thing. Okay? They divide the world into two groups. Everybody that belongs to their church and everybody that doesn't belong to their church. Now, most Protestant churches have the attitude that you have to be a member of their church in order to be saved. If you're not a member of their church, you're not going to be saved. But they don't have a purgatory. So if you're a member of their church, but you're not a faithful member of the church, there's no purgatory. You're going to hell. Okay? In order to have heaven, you've got to be a member of their church. Okay. Then there is a group of churches that say, well, let's not debate about whether your church is going to heaven or my church is going to heaven. Let's say that if somebody's a member of any one of our group of churches, when they die, they're going to heaven. And everybody that's not a member of our group of churches will go to hell. Okay? And but then each church has its own specific set of rules. You follow the leader. It's all about following the leader and keeping the rules of that church. Okay? And but then even then, sometimes the rules vary. Like one church requires baptism by immersion, another requires baptism by sprinkling. And then there might be other rules that how you say the baptismal prayer. I've heard about two churches that had a disagreement, or there was a disagreement within a church about how to say the baptismal prayer, and the church split. And so there were two churches that did baptism one way and another church that did baptism the other way, and each one saying the other church was not going to be saved because they were doing it the wrong way. Okay. Once again, once again, it comes down to the fact I don't believe that God is so petty that he's going to save one person because they say a baptismal prayer one way and another person says baptismal prayer another way. And once again, it's coming back to keeping the rules of the leadership of that church. Okay, so like I say, on the one end, you've got those that are very much like the Catholic Church. You be a member of their church, follow their rules, and you're saved. And then you've got the group of churches that are kind of a confederation of churches that you belong to any one of their churches, as long as you're keeping the rules of whatever church it is that you've chosen to be a member of. Okay, well then, you've got a lot of break-off churches and branch churches that talk about salvation, but and then the most liberal type church is